Hey everybody, Pete Blair with the Corrections Unfiltered podcast where corrections meets conversation. Today we have a very great opportunity to learn about an initiative put forward by the Pitzer Family Education Foundation. Warden Pitzer, about 2012, was noticing the power that education has in a person's life, how it can be transformative, how it can give them confidence, how it can really set a path for the future. And he got an idea. What if we were to give these educational opportunities to the children of the incarcerated? Today, we have the opportunity to speak to Anthony Haynes of the Pitzer Family Education Foundation. He's going to tell us how the foundation came together, what's its mission, and how many lives it's been able to change. And then, interestingly, who all gets to donate to this foundation. So let's start this conversation with Anthony. Hey, everybody, Pete Blowers, and I am excited to be sitting with Anthony Haynes. Anthony, nice to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you too, Pete.
You want to give us a little bit of your background and what's going on?
Sure. And thank you again for having me on. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. Give you a little history about myself. I actually, in 1983, I joined the United States Air Force, became a police officer, did 10 years with the Air Force, and ended up discharging from the Air Force after coming back from the Gulf War, Desert Storm campaign. And once I got out of there, that was in 1992. So I did 10 years with them. Then I went on to join the Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Prisons. And I started out as a correction officer, worked my way up through the custody ranks to a position of senior executive service warden. And that was after serving 21 years. I worked at 10 different correctional facilities while I was employed with the Bureau. And then after I left there, I ran across a gentleman just before I ready to retire in December of 2013. I ran across a gentleman by the name of Percy Pitzer. And Percy Pitzer reached out to me and was explaining to me about a foundation that he wanted to start. So he started explaining it to me, and me coming up through corrections, his message to me was, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting this foundation, and I want the inmates to be a part of it, and I want them to donate funds to the foundation to help their kids go to school." And so I had to think about it for a little bit. Once I started thinking about it, I said, okay, I don't know how we're going to get money from inmates because they very seldom have any money themselves. And what they do get and have, they're going to spend it on, commissary snacks and things and trade things off. I said, but let's look at the concept of that. So he explained to me at that point after we talked. He flew me down. Well, I drove down from Forest City, Arkansas. That's where I retired out of the Bureau of Prisons, and he's down in Beaumont, Texas. Came down there, sat down with him, and he was explaining to me that there's a lot of things that go on with the prison systems with their kids and the families, and so he started explaining to me, hey, if we can get the inmates to invest into their own children to help us reduce second generation crime, prevent those kids from going to prisons themselves, then this is a way to go about it. Plus, if we can get the inmates invested in their own children and helping, we can get the public to also participate and help in reducing the crime, the children going to prison after their parents. So after we talked about that for a little while, we got into it. And then I said, well, Percy, what made you think of doing this? And Percy's reason for actually going into this was, him being 30 plus years in the prison systems. He worked federal as well as private sector. He also saw a lot of children that were visiting in the visiting rooms, coming in to see their parents, also following the same footsteps. Because when a child loses a parent in corrections or they lose a parent to prison, they're kind of left alone. The social stigmas that they face, the financial instabilities, the not knowing how they're going to live their life while their parent is incarcerated. The money is gone. Some of them lose housing. Some of them have to be sheltered out to different families. So they end up doing crimes themselves. They have nowhere to go. They have no way to survive. They have no money for education. So they're going to end up, the majority of them end up going into prisons themselves. And so he was explaining if we could do something and catch these kids prior to them going to prison, and give them a path of education versus incarceration, we can make a significant difference on how the folks in these communities are ending up in prison and reduce it. So we thought about it for a little while. We talked about it, and then he also explained to me, Percy, like I said, he's very, very caring person. Him and his wife, Sue, they are the type of folks that I've never worked with anybody like them before in my total career, military, private sector, anything. Percy and Sue could have been selfish. They could just take their money because he runs a Creative Corrections LLC company. They've been very fortunate. They're doing well in that business. They could have easily just taken their money and take, vacations and trips and worry about themselves. Percy and Sue take every thought that they have of trying to help people in need, whether it's children of incarcerated parents, whether it's trying to help uh, inmates who are releasing from prison, try to give them a path to be able to survive in the community once they return home so that they don't end up going back to prison. I have seen them when they had storms down there in Beaumont, when they've had, because they live down in Beaumont, Texas, that's where the headquarters is for Pitzer Family Education Foundation. But I have seen them actually go in and help communities, rent out food trucks, feed families who were struggling. I mean, they're not selfish by far. But when it comes to helping all of these kids, that's where his heart is at, and that's where her heart is at. And when they're looking at providing these resources for these kids, the main goal is to try to prevent them from going to prison. So, Pitzer Family Education Foundation was created by Percy. Once he got out of the private sector, he decided to start the foundation. It's a 501(c)(3) nonprofit that provides educational opportunities for kids who have parents incarcerated or on parole. And it also has a program where we provide trade certificate courses to inmates who are releasing out of the prisons in the Southeast Texas area. So he started out in 2012. That's when he activated it. He used to be called Creative Corrections Education Foundation, and then he changed the name to Pitzer Family Education Foundation. The main mission of that is to try to get these kids to give them a path of going to school. There's been many times, even me in some of my facilities, when I was a warden over in Metropolitan Detention Center in Guaynabo, Puerto Rico, I would have the mother, we had pods over there, 12 floors, and we had pods on each side. And in the pods, I'd have father, the mother, and even the sons or the daughters all locked up at the same time. And what ends up happening is these kids, if you don't give them an opportunity to survive, they got to survive some kind of way. So they see a path of doing the same things that possibly their parents did because they have no other way to reach out to survive themselves. When a parent goes to prison, that kid has left with no financial stability. They have insecurities with being lonely, left out, forgotten about. They have no goals to try to achieve higher education because the funding's not there. So Pitzer Family Education Foundation, where Percy Pitzer comes along and he says, okay, well, this is what we're going to look at. If you have a parent incarcerated or on parole, here's what we'll do. You have to be between the ages of 18 and 27 years old. And if you have that part and you have a parent that's actually incarcerated or parole, because we do check that, then we look at if they meet those criteria, we say, okay, so now you have to show us that you are in financial need of a scholarship because everybody that's in prison isn't broke. There's a lot of rich folks that actually get incarcerated and their families don't need any financial scholarships and things like that. They can pay for their college themselves. So what ends up happening is we have them do a Pell Grant application, and it's a FOSFA. So when they fill out that federal grant, they have to prove that they're eligible for financial assistance. They meet a guideline criteria. If they get approved of that, then we take a look at the kids and we say, okay, so if you meet those criteria, let's look at one more thing. Let's tell us a little bit about yourself. So introduction, we make them talk about what they're about, what they've gone through, how we select these kids, because we get a lot of applications that come in for the foundation for scholarships, but how we select them, we say, okay, well, you have to be able to be accepted in a accredited college anywhere in the United States because we don't do online courses. Once you get that letter of approval that you're in there, then we'll turn around and say, okay, now we want you to talk about what happened, what is causing you to want to think that you're, in need or you should be a recipient for a scholarship. That's when we turn around and look at their story. Their introductory story tells us a lot. Some of these kids have both parents incarcerated. Some of them are living with a grandparent. Some of them are living with a cousin. They really don't have any hopes of any, achieving any goals in the community life of getting employment, things like that. So a lot of them drop out of school and end up going to prison themselves. So we look at their story, and once we see their stories, we tie all that into their what they want to do, what they're going to take in school, and how their career path, which path are they choosing. But the main focus that we look at is their stories. And once we go through that packet and they fill everything out there, then we end up awarding them a scholarship to a four-year college. We don't do the doctoral programs, anything like that. We only do the four-year college. And once they finish the four-year college and they graduate, then we can easily say that they should be able to find employment and be able to get a job and pay for their further education from that point on, so we can reach out to the kids who haven't had any help or success yet. And so with that program, I mean, just since Percy started this program, we put 227 scholarships awarded to kids throughout the United States. 183 of those kids have already graduated with four-year degrees and are doing well. And so we're making progress on that, because if they have a path of education, if they can compete in a job market, then they end up becoming self-supportive. They can provide for their own selves. They don't have to end up doing a crime or something like that to survive. They become taxpayer citizens. Their communities become safer and for all, and they have a self-pride. They have pride in what they're doing and being able to take care of themselves. And then they end up reducing the second generational crime path that we're dealing with in the United States today. So it's a win-win all day long for that. And so his heart of starting this program, that's what makes it so important to me, because, when you look at families, whether it's somebody who gets divorced, parents divorce, the kids are left behind. They don't know who to go to. They don't know what they're going to do in life. It's the same type of situation that a kid goes through when a parent goes to prison. So when they lose that safety net at home, they have to find a way to survive. So these kids, when we put them through these programs, like I said, they're doing well. They have a goal now, and then we ask them to actually turn around and pay it forward and help by donating to the foundation, so we could continue to send kids that need assistance into doing the same thing that we allow them to do or help them to do. Okay, and then we have another part of the foundation that we do is with the inmates. Down in Southeast Texas, if the inmates released from prison and they're on parole, we also have a program with the foundation where we allow them to go to trade school over at the Associated Builders and Contractors in Nederland, Texas. And what they do is they can take a trade in plumbing, they can take electrical, carpentry, scaffold build, rigger. It just depends on what they want to take. We sit them down, see what they're able to look at and do. And what their qualifications are, but the school actually rates them on what they are capable of doing, not our foundation. But we set them up, we pay the tuition for them to go to school there. And then it gives these individuals a chance to become productive in society. Once you release from prison, if you can't find housing, if you can't find employment, if you don't have health insurance, how are you going to survive? I mean, how do you survive? A lot of these folks, when they go to prison and they get released, they don't have the skills. And then a lot of the employment agencies won't hire them, because one of the boxes that you have to check off on an application in most cases is, have you ever been convicted of a crime? And so that automatically knocks them out of the box right there.
Yeah.
And if they can't get a job, they have to survive some kind of way. And then if they had bad terms with the family that they left, they can't go back there and live, and then you have a problem there. Because our whole society, our whole system in the criminal justice, when you look at the whole process of dealing with folks being released from prison, it's set up to where once they finish, they most of the time get 2, maybe 3 weeks in a halfway house. They get released to that halfway house and they tell them, hey, you have to find employment and you have to find a residence within that 2 to 3 weeks time. If you've been locked up 15, 20 years, what's the possibility that you're going to be able to complete that or do
It's going to
that?
be tough.
It's going to be very tough. And so we don't really give them an avenue to really survive with the reentry process. We have all these programs and things that's out there for reentry. You hear about people talking about it all the time. But when it comes down to the rubber meeting the road, where and how do these folks survive? So, we take them into this trade certificate program over at the Associated Builders and Contractors. And once they graduate with that certification, we help them find employment. We put them in welding jobs. We help them set up with anything that we have down there that meets the career that they chosen for their trade. We have an outstanding individual, Marcia Pitzer and Mary Williams down in Beaumont. Now, those two are the main functioning machine of the foundation. Marcia knows everybody in the Southeast Texas community, so she ends up getting all these companies to be able to hire the inmates once they graduate out of that trade program. And Mary does the same thing. They go out and do seminars, they do job trade shows, they do conferences, they go out and teach to the probation officers, making sure that they know. They meet with the courts and the judges, and try to understand that we need help in placing these folks in these programs so that they can survive once they get released from prison. And they actually even help them write resumes. Marcia and Mary set up a clothing, free clothing for suits for when they go on job interviews down there at the Beaumont office. And it's just going way above and beyond of just counting numbers of kids getting scholarships and counting numbers of how many inmates we help once they get released from prison. We're trying to make sure that it's seen all the way through from A to Z. So we can't just let them get released, get a trade, and then we don't help them get a job because that defeats the purpose of the whole program. So we try to carry it all the way through. We have a lot of partners down there that we connect with to help us with that program. So once we end up getting those folks into the trades and they go in and they actually can secure a job, there's a couple of things that we have to look at as society because the community always thinks that, well, to get rid of our problems, we'll lock them up, we'll put them away, and now
Right.
we're done with them. But that's not true. Number one, if a person goes to prison, you have to pay for that person to be incarcerated. The family's left behind, so now they need government assistance. It's a chain effect. If they
Right.
need government assistance, all this is being paid for by the taxpayer. So, in order to reduce recidivism of the inmates going right back to prison, once they get a trade and they can get a secure job, they end up becoming self-sufficient on their own, self-supportive. They end up being able to take care of themselves and provide for their families and prevent going back to prison because they just can't survive or can't have a means. So.
I really appreciate the fact that you brought that in holistically to also the inmate success with reentry. Because, I've been like you, sir. I've done a lot of time in prisons and I've talked to a lot of inmates. You find out their dads and their mothers, and they have the same cares and concerns for their children. So this gives an avenue of hope, and they actually get to contribute to it, like you said. Which I want to dig into that in just a little bit. But if you hope you don't mind me making this statement is to bring that success of the inmate reentering into society or being more successful while they're incarcerated to attend their own college if the facility provides it or their own GED program or high school programs if they're associated with that, but also getting those certificates for those trades. Great approach. I mean, it's just completely all the way around. I just love that. Um, what I was curious is, have you had any difficulties in getting the employee or getting the agencies to allow the inmates to donate?
For the states, corrections, we are partners with 14 different states. And in those states, those inmates, Percy and I actually drove out to the prisons. And just to give you a couple of states, Colorado, I went to every prison in Colorado, every prison in Virginia, got in a car, drove, and went out and did presentations to the inmate population, explaining to them that, hey, whether you help or not, it's up to you. It's all voluntary. But if you took 25 cents a month, 50 cents a month, put it aside and donate it to the foundation, 100% of your donations from an incarcerated individual goes to award a scholarship for a kid who has a parent incarcerated. We don't use any inmate funding for programs, salaries, anything like that. Every penny of their donation goes to a kid who has a parent incarcerated.
Wow.
And we verify that by once they put in the application, we have access to the inmate data. We go in, talk to the the facility. You can actually pull it up and see what their release date is. That's all general information and public information. And so we go through there, verify that, and we tell them, hey, if you get involved, this will help us help your kids have an opportunity to succeed in their own life without getting end up in the correctional system. And those inmates in the 14 states, just to give you an example, have donated over $250,000 for kids who have parents incarcerated
Wow,
thus
that's not a
far.
small amount.
That's not a small amount because those inmates, when you look at the salaries, you would think that they don't have a lot to give. But that's why we tell them it's voluntary only. But maybe one day you don't get that honey bun out of the commissary. Put that
Yeah,
money aside and donate, to help a kid go to school. And that way we can
yeah,
reduce the recidivism. I mean, the inmates following or the kids following their parents' footsteps of going to prison. And they are so receptive of it and they are proud of it. When I go to these facilities and Percy goes to these facilities, they are really amazed of even having an agency participate of wanting to help their families while they're incarcerated. And so the goal for them to be able to do that is amazing. The states are coming on board. Our goal in Pitzer Family Education Foundation is to try to get every state correctional facility and every federal facility, as well as the local jails and the local custody facilities, to participate in it. All we want to do is send the information in, let them be able to read it. Some of the states that we're with have allowed our foundation information to be on the inmate tablet system. They put
yeah.
it on the commissary list. So those inmates can donate to the foundation when they want to. And that's the positiveness that we're getting. Some of the restrictions that we are facing is being able to get into those agencies. I mean, Texas alone, TDCJ has 120 prisons in Texas. And so we have Texas as one of our partnerships as well.
Is
And
that
they,
right?
yes, sir, and they allow their inmates to donate to the foundation on a regular basis as well. And so Arizona is a big state. Every one of their prisons facilities the inmates are allowed to donate to the foundation. So they see a need in wanting to help, and that's why we're believing that. That was one of Percy's biggest decisions, also to create the Pitzer Family Education Foundation. When he saw that inmates themselves were willing to help their kids go to school and prevent them from going to prison, that was another reason why he established this foundation. And he said, because if the inmates are willing to do it, the public has to be able to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And addressing the children and making sure that there's a route for them to be able to get into, like you said, a four-year college or a trade school is so beneficial just to the overall welfare, mental health of an inmate to know that there is something, one, that they're giving. I did notice a change when you have inmates who are getting closer to release and they want to be more involved with community projects, whether it's knitting blankets, whether
Right.
or doing a painting that goes, or cards, Christmas cards, Thanksgiving cards, and things like that nature, to say, the facilities out in town that for our elderly population. There were things that they wanted to feel good about giving back because they realized that they've taken so much.
Right.
And here you have an opportunity for inmates to be able to donate to a charitable fund that goes to a college. Maybe not to my kid. Maybe I don't even have a kid it applies to, but I feel as though I'm giving to this fund that's going to help somebody,
Right.
and taking care of that, because we've got to stop. We've got to do what we can to stop the people from coming in. And education is absolutely one of the best resources that we have in our society to say, let's give everybody a great opportunity to being successful. And I love the approach with the trade schools because, there's a lot of communication out there with AI coming around and different things
Right.
taking place. That some jobs, like I have a kid that's a coder. Well, that coding job could be in jeopardy over a period of time. However, like you said, welder, plumber, carpenter, bricklayer, mason, all those different types of jobs are always going to be out there. And this is a way that we can get at least the comfort and security of knowing that we've done something for our children. So you've said what was the number that you said that you had of people who received the scholarship? It was a high number.
It's 227 just that we actually provided a scholarship to, and out of that 227, 183 have graduated with a 4-year degree.
And on that, I happen to notice on the website that there is a variety of different scholarships. Can you kind of explain how the scholarship amounts are broken down?
It's really it could be up to 5,000, but we normally start every semester year. Once they have been approved for a scholarship, we give them $1,000 scholarship. And what's unique about the Pitzer Family Education Foundation is we don't allow the student themselves, we don't send a check to them. What we do is we start out, if they're in a 4-year degree program, we try to give them as long as funding is available. We give them $1,000 each semester year. That could be up to 4,000. Some kids may have a curriculum that they're taking that might take them into five for undergrad. Not many come up with that, but that's how they can reach five. The more money that we have available, we can determine whether increasing on the need. But if they stay in good standing with the school and they're keeping their, we don't go by the criteria of grades and things for them, but they have to be enrolled in school. So whether they're a C or an A, as long as they're enrolled in that school, we will allow them to repeat the scholarship every year for the 4 years as long as funding is available.
That's great. And that's going to set that pattern of behavior that makes people successful.
Yeah.
I had a lot of people used to ask me, why is hiring people with a college education so important? It's not, sometimes it's the degree, sometimes it's the information that they've received. They can prove to you they've established the ability to work towards a goal for a long period of time, be
Right.
tested and evaluated, fix issues if they come up, and achieve that goal. And
That's
that's what we're
true.
taking, that's what's happening with these children, is they're given this opportunity to go to school, like you said. It's monitored to make sure that they're maintaining their school grades, their academics. Like you said, there's a range of A to C, whatever, but they're able to set those habits that are going to be able to make them successful after school is out. I know personally for a fact in my lifetime, my friends that have gone to school and established those behavior patterns are
Mm.
very successful. Those
Yes.
of us who chose not to do it that route, well, we went to the school of hard knocks and we had to do it a different way. I
Right.
wish a lot of times I had chosen that school pattern just to see what would have been available to me or what I would have eventually been able to do myself. But can you kind of give me an idea where you see this foundation going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Sure. So, because we have the two programs, the other big part of the program, with the parolees going into the trade school program, we've put 823 parolees through the trade certificate program at the AB, Associate Builders and Contractors. So, out of that, we have 204 graduates that graduated with a trade degree, certificate in one of those, welding, construction. Carpentry, those type of things. And so they're doing very well. So how we see maybe 5 to 10 years out is we want to make sure that we can expand on our programs. We want to make sure that we can have more availability, not just for inmates releasing from prison in Southeast Texas. We want to try to, spread that across the United States and have partnerships with different trade schools and things like that across the United States. So some of the things that we're looking at when we're talking about expanding and trying to, we want to make Pitzer Family Education Foundation actually a national network of how we take education and replace it with incarceration. We want to be the model that everybody goes by. And that's what we're working forward to. Again, Percy's like a well-oiled machine. He's always thinking about ways of how he can continue to help people in need, giving them a hand up and not a hand out, making
Yeah.
sure that they got some skin in the game and that they're willing to take these hard roads so that they can make life better for themselves. He just recently wrote a book called A Warden's Path, from tough to smart on crime. And so in that book, he covers all the things, some of the things we've already talked about, as far as, being able to look at the real picture of what goes on in the United States, the incarceration levels, the facilities that these individuals have to go to, not having enough bed space. Not having enough staff to supervise them, not having the funding, things that we can do to maybe look at doing things smarter, like we talk about home confinement, things like that, versus just being tougher. Tougher hasn't worked. Those folks come back out, they end up committing more crimes, and they go right back to prison. So giving them an avenue of education and being able to do those type of things, he covers all this really well in his book. I have to put that out there because what the proceeds, he's not even worried about making money from the book. The
No.
proceeds that he's getting from the book that he just wrote is going to be going back into percentages of that's going to be going back into the foundation to continue to help kids. And a foundation is not, especially a nonprofit, is not cheap. Percy and Sue took $2.5 million of their own money
Mm.
to invest in this foundation, to keep it up and running, to make sure that it's operational, to make sure that we have resources. They're our biggest contributor next to the inmates. I mean, okay, that's totally different, but the inmates in the 250,000 mark for inmates making, 12 cents to 40 cents, I put them up in that same category, Percy and Sue, he's always constantly looking at different ways to be able to have resources to help these kids in need. And the communities need to step up. I mean, they really do. Give you an example, just in Southeast Texas, you have a lot of community leaders there that could be helping, whether it's donating, whether it's, going to our foundation and donating, whether it's, participating in programs, helping us find jobs, housing, things like that. Sometimes when people don't see or it doesn't affect them personally, they kind of put it to the side and don't think
Yep.
about it. And that's a big problem, and Percy and Sue are just one couple. They're doing so much for so many people, but you can't continue to do that without financial support. Percy's company has been donating money to cover those programs currently right now down in the Beaumont Nederland
How
Training
about
Center.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, so they could actually be taking their money and doing other things, but their heart is true. I mean, they're actually out trying to make a difference, trying to make sure that this foundation stays strong, but they need help. They need help. They can't do it by themselves.
Is there any way that listeners can contribute?
Yes. So, anybody listening on this podcast, there's a couple things that you can do to help us succeed and continue in our mission. Again, our mission is to prevent second generation crime, helping kids provide them with an education versus incarceration, and we're trying to reduce the recidivism of inmates going back to prison by giving them a trade that they can compete in jobs and survive themselves in the community. So, to help get involved, there's a couple things. They can go to our website at www.pfefscholarships.org. They can make a donation there. They can also send checks to our foundation office if they want to donate. They can send a check to 6545 Calder Avenue, Beaumont, Texas, and that zip code is 77706. They could also look at, again, going on our website. Percy's book, A Warden's Path, is on there. They can go on there, make a donation by purchasing the book. Like I said earlier, those proceeds are going to go back into the foundation to help continue running the programs. They can go on Amazon to order that book or where books are sold. So those are some of the things that they can do. Our biggest thing that we would love folks to do is spread the word on social media. Go on social
Yeah.
media, share all of this information. If they go on our website, it's very user friendly, intuitive. It covers everything that I'm talking about. The testimonies from the kids that we're helping, from the children incarcerated parents
Yeah.
side, as well as the inmates getting out. We've had inmates that, we've done news clips. We have videos on our website that shows actual stories of how our programs have affected these inmates and preventing them from going back to prison. We have videos and we have testimonies of kids saying that they don't know what they would have done if they had not received a Pitzer Family Education Foundation scholarship. So,
That's powerful.
yes, that's very powerful. And
Very
it
powerful.
sometimes, even for me, they always think that Warren's supposed to be like, mean and ornery and always, grouchy and things like that. But, when you have family or friends incarcerate yourself and you see them going through, whether it's a sickness or illness, whether it's incarceration, you tend to gravitate closer to that and be more aware and cognizant of those problems in society. If you don't have anything like that ever cross your path, maybe you don't think about it. But I believe truly that every human being on this planet either been in prison, knows somebody who's in prison, had a family member in prison,
Yeah.
or something of that nature. And so we have to do something better. Educating these kids and catching them early before they go to prison is the way to do it. And, education is a proven fact that it does deter folks from going to prison. It gives them something to be proud of. It gives them a chance
Yep.
to be a participating, citizen in the community, and the taxpayers don't have to pay for it. So if they do that, and if they get on that website, please get on that website and have them, check us out. Everything is there. And if they have any issues, any questions, they can do one or two things. Percy Pitzer is always available. His email is createcorrection@aol.com. I'm also the same. Mine is, I'm on the website as well, and mine is A Haynes, Haynes, at pfefscholarships with an S.org. And my telephone number is 409-730-3247. We could be reached at any time.
Well, I hope people don't challenge you on that anytime thing.
Anytime,
But
anytime.
I'm glad you brought up the book. I saw that this book was out. I got it. If you can see, I've got plenty of areas where I've taken note. It's just an incredible account of, his personal story. How did it start out? How was he raised? Joins the army, leaves for the army, meets Sue, comes home, gets out of the army. It's just a wonderful account of how he becomes, involved in corrections, moves his way up to warden, and how his life changes. And I'm so moved by when you talked about this is so unselfish of him and Sue
Yes.
that they've donated 2.5 million of their own money. That could have been in their bank account, like you said.
True.
They could be living a totally different life if they had that money available to them. But instead, they turn it into something else. And through this foundation, you've got inmates who are now able to donate. We've got community people who can donate. And let's take an opportunity to break this cycle. Let's buy the book, because not only do you get a great story of a personal life of a great human being, but you also are able to donate. That money's going to go and donate to this fund. So it just goes to show you the power of the foundation. Goes to show the power of you, the power of Percy Pitzer. That this is a holistic thing. It's not just dependent upon one person or one action. So kudos to you, sir. I tell you, I can't thank you enough for the information. Is there any other topics as far as the foundation you want to be able to have the listeners know about?
We definitely need public help, as far as funding. I mean, again, Percy and Sue are using their own money to, support and operate this foundation by themselves. But we do get help from the public. We have companies like Core Civic is one that donates to the foundation yearly. We have this other company out of Colorado called Ranch Lands, and that company, they make leather products, but they
Oh,
actually make it into prison. Those inmates, when they were told, hey, we want to donate a percentage of our monthly income to a foundation, we would like to give it to the Pitzer Family Education Foundation. They've been donating monthly to the foundation, but we definitely just need to get the word out that, the need is there. And if we want to make our community safer, if we want to reduce the tax burden, if we want to make sure that we're helping souls and individuals prevent going to prison and be productive in society, we need their help with donations.
well, sir, I certainly hope that people watch this podcast. I hope that they share this podcast with others so that we can get some donations coming in. And I know that your website, I took a look at it. It's going to keep people updated on where the money's going, how the money's being used, the great success stories of these wonderful people who are getting an opportunity to change their lives, breaking down that constant repeat of family members just coming back into corrections. It's going to do all of those wonderful things. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast and discussing all these things. So Anthony, I can't thank you enough again. This has been a wonderful conversation. I look forward to getting this out. Thank you for your service in the Air Force too. I'd always want to make sure that we thank you for your service as an Air Force veteran. You did it during a combat time. Thank you so much for that challenge that you overcame, and look what you've done with your life. I wish I had run into you when I was working in the bureau, because I definitely believe you're the type of leader that would have made me a much better leader also.
Well, Pete, thank you for your service as well. And thank you for not cracking down on me for being in the Air Force instead of Marine Corps. So I'll throw
Next
that out there
time.
to you next time. Yeah. So,
Yeah, we
but
get to
no,
that
thank
stuff
you for
next
your
time.
service as well. And thank you for having us on. We really appreciate the support.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. See you next time.
All right. Take care.